Assalamu alaikum dear students. In the last lecture of chapter 4, Laws of Motion, we have studied types of forces in which we had discussed the first types of force is fundamental forces in nature. We had discussed real and pseudo forces, as well as we had seen conservative and non-conservative forces, and also we had discussed the concept of potential energy. Now, let's have the next subtopic of types of forces, that is work done by a variable force. As we have already studied the work done by a force which is assumed to be constant in magnitude and direction, but force may not be constant in practice. When a body goes away from the center of the earth, the magnitude of the gravitational force continuously goes on decreasing while direction always remains the same. Also, a body attached to a spring elongates a spring. The elongation produced in the spring changes with the motion of the body, and since force is proportional to the elongation, which is variable. So, a body may move under the action of a force whose magnitude and direction may be changing. The popular formula for calculating work done we are using as W is equal to vector F dot vector S, and hence it is to be written as Fs cos theta, where theta is the angle between the applied force F and the displacement S. This formula is applicable only if both force F and displacement S are constant and finite. In several real life situations, the force is not constant. For example, while lifting an object through several thousands kilometers, the gravitational force is not constant. The viscous forces like fluid resistance depend upon the speed, hence quite often are not constant with time. In order to calculate the work done by such variable forces, we use integration there. Now, the figure shows the variation of a force F plotted against the corresponding displacement in its direction S. As the displacement is in the direction of the applied force, the vector nature is not used here. We need to calculate the work done by this force during the displacement from S1 to S2. As the force is variable, you can see the value of the force is changes over here. The value of the force is changes when the displacement is there from the value S1 to S2 there. As the force is variable, then by using the formula W is equal to F into S, where S we are taking the displacement. Okay, so here the change in displacement we are supposed to take as S2 minus S1. As the force is variable, so W is equal to F into S2 minus S1 directly is not possible. Then in order to use the integration, we are dividing the displacement into large number of the infinitely small displacements there. And one of such displacement we are giving it as ds. As you can see over here, from the displacement S1 to S2, as the force is variable there from S1 to S2. So, during this displacement, we are dividing this displacement into large number of the infinitely small displacement, and one such displacement we are naming as ds. As it is so small that the force F is practically constant for this displacement dx. So practically constant means the change in the force is so small that the change cannot be recorded. So for the very small change in this displacement, the force is to be taken as constant, but when we are considering the displacement from S1 to S2, so the force is to be taken over here as the variable. So here we are dividing the displacement from S1 to S2 into large number of the small infinite displacement, which is ds, and for this small displacement the force F is to be taken practically constant. Now this shaded strip shows one of such displacement here. As the force is constant, so the area of this strip is to be taken as F dot ds, which is the work done dw for this displacement ds. So the total work done w from the displacement S2 minus S1 can be obtained by using the integration there, and hence the total work done here we have to integrate the all small work done's dw, and hence by considering their integration from the displacement S1 to S2 we are getting the total work done there. That's why the total work done for the displacement S1 to S2 is given as integration F dot ds limit from S1 to S2. Now this method of integration is applicable if the exact way of variation in F with S is known and that function is integrable. Now the area under the curve between S1 and S2 also gives the work done W if the force axis necessarily starts with 0 there, as it consists of all the strips of ds between S1 and S2. Now in the next figure, the variation in the force is linear. As you can see, the variation of the force is linear there from the displacement S1 to S2. So in this case, the area of the trapezium A S1 S2 B gives the total work done W. As in the figure A, the work done by the non-linearly varying force is there. That's why here we have taken the integration of all small work dones from S1 to S2, and hence that work done is to be given as integration F dot ds S1 from S2. But when the work done is linearly varying force, which is shown in this figure B, then the area under the trapezium A S1 S2 B gives the total work done W there. So in this way we can determine and calculate the work done by a variable force. The next topic we have collisions. As during the collisions, a number of objects come together, interact with each other, that means exert the forces on each other and scatter in different directions. During a collision, a linear momentum of the body or of the entire system of the particles is always conserved, as there is no external force acting on the system of the particles. However, the individual momenta of the particles change due to mutual forces which are internal forces. That means in collisions, the total linear momentum of the particles is conserved, but their kinetic energy need not to be conserved there. The total kinetic energy in the collision of the colliding particles is conserved. That is the same kinetic energy we are getting before and after the collision there, and hence it is said to be the elastic collision. Over here we are considering that the two bodies having the mass m1 and m2 is moving initially with the initial velocity u1 and u2 respectively in the same direction. As when they are moving with their initial velocity u1 and u2 there, so the line joining their centers are there in a same line. That's why it is said to be the head-on collision before the collision there, as their centers are there in a same line. The centers of both the bodies are traveling in a same line there. That's why it is said to be the head-on collision. So before the collision, the body having mass m1 is moving with initial velocity u1 and body of mass m2 is moving with initial velocity u2. When after some time both the bodies are collide, that means the head-on collision will take place, and hence during the impact the body mass m1 exert the force on the body mass m2, and at the same instant the body mass m2 exerts the force on the body having the mass m1 there for the interval of time t. So during the impact over here, for the interval of time t, both the bodies are exerting force on each other there. And it is mentioned here F12 is nothing but the force exerted by the body having mass 2 m2 on the body having the mass m1 there, and F21 represents the force exerts on the body having the mass m2 by the body having the mass m1. So for the interval of time t, both the bodies having mass m1 and m2 exerts the force on each other. And after making the collision over here, now the body having the mass m1 is moving with its final velocity v1, and the body having the mass m2 is moving with its final velocity v2 in a given direction there. As over here during a collision, the linear momentum of the entire system of the particle is always conserved, as there is no external force acting on the system of the particles. Hence we can say that the total momentum before the collision is equal to total momentum after the collision there. However, the individual momentum of the particles change due to the mutual forces which are internal forces, and hence we can say that the total initial momentum of the system is equal to total initial final momentum of the system there during any collision or explosion, where this P indicates the total linear momentum of the particles there. So over here in the collision, the total linear momentum of the particles is conserved. The total initial momentum is equal to total final momentum of the system, but their kinetic energy need not to be conserved there. However, the kinetic energy of the entire system may or may not be conserved, and hence the collisions can be of two types, which is called as elastic collision or inelastic collision. As we had seen, the collision in which the total kinetic energy of the colliding particles is conserved, that is said to be a elastic collision. And if the kinetic energy is not same before and after the collision, so it is said to be the inelastic collision. So let's see more about elastic and inelastic collisions. As here we had discussed already that the particles having the mass m1 and m2 is moving with its initial velocity u1 and u2. For the interval of time t, both the masses interact with each other and hence exert the force on each other. And hence after the collision, both the bodies having mass m1 and m2 is now moving with its final velocity v1 and v2 respectively. As discussed earlier, during this collision, the total linear momentum of the entire system of the particles is conserved. The total linear momentum, initial momentum of the system before the collision is equal to total final momentum after the collision there. Now, a collision is said to be elastic if the kinetic energy of the entire system is conserved during the collision along with the linear momenta. That means over here, as we had seen, the total linear momentum of the system is conserved. The total initial and final momentum is same, and a collision we are getting in which the total kinetic energy of the system before the collision and after the collision is same, then such collision is said to be a elastic collision. So, a collision is said to be elastic if kinetic energy of the entire system is conserved during the collision there along with the linear momentum, and hence during an elastic collision we can say that the total initial kinetic energy is equal to total final kinetic energy. So, in the elastic collision, two conditions must be satisfied during the collision, that the total initial linear momentum of the system is equal to total final linear momentum of the system, and the total initial kinetic energy of the system is equal to total final kinetic energy of the system there. That means a collision is said to be elastic if kinetic energy and the linear momentum of entire system is conserved during the collision. That means the kinetic energy and linear momentum before and after the collision is same, then such collision is said to be a elastic collision. So, an elastic collision, actually it is impossible in our daily life. However, in many situations the interatomic or intermolecular collisions are considered to be elastic. Like in kinetic theory of gases, over here we are getting the collision between the particles are said to be the elastic collision over there, but in our daily life an elastic collision is impossible because some amount of the energy is going to be converted in another form of energy, and hence another type of the collision is given over there which is said to be a inelastic collision. So, a collision is said to be inelastic if there is a loss in kinetic energy during the collision, but the linear momentum is conserved. That means when the bodies are interact with each other, the total linear momentum of the system is conserved, but its kinetic energy is not conserved. Such collision is said to be inelastic collision. So, over here, as we are not getting the total initial kinetic energy is equal to total final kinetic energy, the difference in the kinetic energy will be obtained before and after the collision over there. So, the loss in kinetic energy is either due to the internal friction or vibrational motion of the atoms causing heating effect. Thus, during an inelastic collision, the total initial kinetic energy is greater than total final kinetic energy. As here the kinetic energies before and after the collision is not same. Before the collision the total kinetic energy is greater than the total kinetic energy after the collision. Hence we can say that there is a difference between the kinetic energy before and after the collision, and that difference occurs actually, it is to be converted into some another form of energy there. And during an explosion an energy is supplied internally, thus over there the total final kinetic energy we are getting greater than the total initial kinetic energy of the system there. So, as stated earlier, the total initial momentum is equal to total final momentum for inelastic collision or explosion also. That means, if the inelastic collision will be takes place, the total linear momentum is conserved. the total linear momentum of the colliding particles, or if the explosion will take place, the total linear momentum before and after the collision will be same, but their kinetic energy will not be same there, as there will be the difference between the total initial and total final kinetic energy of the system before and after the collision over there. So, here the difference that we are getting in the inelastic collision, that means the kinetic energy is not conserved in the inelastic collision, only momenta is conserved over there. So, that difference in the kinetic energy will appear in some amount of, you can see, it is to be converted into like heat energy, it is to be converted into the light energy or deformation, etc. That means the difference that we are getting in the kinetic energy before and after the collision in the inelastic collision, that is to be converted into some other form of energy. For example, if we are throwing a ball from a certain height, for example, from the ground surface we had taken the height 2 meter. So, from the 2 meter we are just freely fall the ball, and when it will strike to the ground. So, you will observe that after striking with the ground, that means the ball is making collision with the ground there, and after making the collision the ball will not retain the same height, that is 2 meter. It is always below the 2 meter. So, here we can say that the initial kinetic energy is greater than the final kinetic energy. After the collision, the kinetic energy will be reduced there, and that kinetic energy which is to be reduced, it is to be appear as in the form of the sound energy. As the ball is to be strike with the ground, the sound is to be appear over there. So, here we can say that the kinetic energy which is to be reduced after the collision, it is converted into the sound energy there. So, such collision is said to be the inelastic collision. So, over here in the inelastic collision, the total linear momentum of the body is conserved, but kinetic energy is not conserved there. The total initial kinetic energy is not equal to total final kinetic energy. So, this is all about the types of the collision, elastic and inelastic collision. Now, next let us have the perfectly inelastic collision. As this is the special case of the inelastic collision, we come to know that in the inelastic collision, the total linear momentum of the body is conserved, but kinetic energy of the entire system is not conserved there. If colliding bodies join together after the collision, then it is said to be a perfectly inelastic collision. Here we can say that the perfectly inelastic collision is actually a special case of the inelastic collision, and in this perfectly inelastic collision, what happens actually, the colliding bodies join together after the collision and they are traveling with the same velocity together after the collision, and such collision is said to be a perfectly inelastic collision. In other words, the colliding bodies have a common final velocity, we can say, after a perfectly inelastic collision there. Being an inelastic collision, obviously there is a loss in kinetic energy of the system during a perfectly inelastic collision. In fact, the loss in kinetic energy is maximum in perfectly inelastic collision. Let's have the examples. Now consider a bullet fired towards a block kept on a smooth surface. Collision between bullet and the block will be elastic if the bullet rebounds with exactly the same initial speed and the block remains stationary. Now, if the bullet gets embedded into the block and the two move jointly, it is perfectly inelastic collision. What we had seen over here, that we are considering a bullet fired towards a block. Block is to be kept on the smooth surface. Now, when the collision is to be made between the bullet and the block, and the collision is said to be the elastic if the bullet rebounds with the exactly same initial speed and the block will remain as it is. But if the bullet gets embedded into the block, then bullet and the block will move together jointly with the same final velocity, and hence it is said to be a perfectly inelastic collision. Now, if the bullet rebounds with the smaller speed and comes out of the block on the other side with the same speed, then it is said to be the inelastic collision. Now, there is nothing called a partially elastic collision. We cannot say it is the partially elastic collision. We have to remember that either it is the inelastic collision or elastic collision or perfectly inelastic collision. We cannot use the term partially over there. So, if the bullet rebounds with the exactly same initial speed and block remains stationary, then the collision is elastic collision. And if the bullet is come out of the block over there on the other side with the little bit smaller speed or the same speed, then it is said to be the inelastic collision. And if the bullet is embedded into the block and bullet and block is moving with the same final velocity, then it is said to be the perfectly inelastic collision. Now let's have the next example. As already we have discussed, that visualize a ball dropped from some height on a hard surface, the entire system being in an evacuated space. If the ball rebounds exactly to the same height from where it is dropped, the collision between the ball and the surface is elastic. As you know, the ball never reaches the same initial height or a height greater than the initial height. So, rebounding to a smaller height refers to the inelastic collision. Instead of a ball, if mud or clay is dropped, it sticks to the surface, and this is the perfectly inelastic collision. So, here we had discussed the examples of the elastic and inelastic and also the perfectly inelastic collision. So, here we have discussed work done by a variable force and elastic and inelastic collisions. The chapter will be continued next time in the next lecture. Thank you.